So there we go. So we have today, if you are joining us live today on our topic of bread, what is so bad about bread? And this is our New Year live. We're going to be doing a series on this on our health discussions on Thursday. We're reintroducing this into our weekly lives once again. And Lee and I have decided that it's really, really important at the moment to talk about gut health, because this seems to be, it's quite a kind of unknown territory for a lot of people that do really suffer with gut health issues. So I'd like to introduce to you today the wonderful Lee Ryan, who is in Perth, Australia this evening. Hi, Lee, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you've got lots and lots of questions for Patricia. We've got the wonderful Patricia Bowerman, who is here in the UK. And Patricia is a health revolution activist. And I am so excited to do this interview with you today, Patricia, to really learn about what, you know, your passion is and all of this knowledge that I've been kind of seeing bits and pieces of through various people. So I'm really super excited to learn more about what you do. But equally, we have kind of tapped on a subject here of sourdough. And sourdough is something that I've only started to really eat in the last couple of years, but I never really knew anything about it. So this is why I'm really excited to learn all about bread, all about gut health issues and things like that. So what we're going to do is try to talk as much as we can today over about 30 minutes. So if you have got any questions, put them in the comments below. Let us know who is joining us live and where you're coming live from. And if you have got any comments, tap them into the comments below and we can come back to you and certainly answer them at the end of this interview. So I'm really excited to introduce Patricia, the health revolution activist, and it is now over to you. So what is so bad about bread, Patricia? Over to you.
Well, thank you, Lisa, so much. Thank you for having me on today. And thank you for that question. It's one of my favorite questions. And so when we look at bread, and so many people are stopping eating it today. But if we look back through history, we have lovely archives of recorded history showing that the Roman and Egyptian armies lived on bread. They fought on bread. They wouldn't get very far today. So what is the difference? Well, back then, wheat was grown without pesticides. We didn't have Monsanto and Roundup and pesticides to be sprayed on crops. So that's one thing. And then it was stone ground. The wheat was stone ground. So why is that different? Well, stone grinding, it's two big stones and the wheat is being ripped apart, shredded apart. So it's very rough. And then of course it's fermented. They didn't have commercial yeast back then. And the way preserving food was fermentation. So bread then was largely flour and water. Maybe they had salt, not sure, but it was flour and water. You read the ingredient label on a loaf of bread today, commercial bread, there's a list of ingredients. Why is that? So if we look at wheat, the whole grain, loaded with nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, all things that our body needs. And something else that whole grain wheat has is the germ, and that contains natural oils, natural omegas. But you know what happens to it today? It's taken out and sold to the pharmaceutical industry and the cosmetic industry. Shocking.
Wow.
Shocking. Now they
so as a supplement.
Well, it's used in cosmetics. I don't know what the drug industry does with it. I probably don't want to know, but
probably not.
But they can get more money doing that than putting into bread. But their justification is that, well, the oil goes off, so this extends the shelf life of the bread by not having the oil in it. But when you think about the nutrients that are in there, why would you want it destroyed? Well, thanks to the Industrial Revolution, they found ways to remanufacture the flour that was more cost effective for them. And we didn't realize that they were depleting the nutrients. They market it toward our sense of convenience. All these lovely loaves of bread, we squeeze it. Oh, that's nice and soft. Oh, that's nice and soft. And they're all exactly the same. And we love it. We've demanded that. So we're part of the problem.
It's the smell. It's the smell as well. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? They say the smell of freshly baked bread is just, it's one of those comfort things, isn't it? It's so inviting. If you want to sell your house, apparently, have your bread in the oven. So yeah.
Yeah. So we love bread, and bread is a staple. You look at cultures and ethnic groups, they all have their own signature breads, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
So now we're getting back to basics. I think we're starting to wake up and starting to realize cancer's on the rise. Diabetes is an epidemic. Where did Alzheimer's come from, and autism, and why is that?
Yeah.
So we're going back to what grandma did. People used to go to their grandmother when they were ill. They didn't run to the doctor.
No, that's right.
We're going back to grandma. So the sourdough bread process is, it modifies the gluten structure. So I have friends who are gluten intolerant. We have a friend in common, gluten intolerant. You've been out to eat with him. I've been out to eat with him. If he gets a bite of anything with gluten, quick excuse, and it runs from the table, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
He can eat this bread all day long. He's now making it himself, no problems.
Yeah. Now you see, I've learned something here that I did not know, that eating sourdough, if you are gluten intolerant, you could do it. You could eat it. I didn't know that.
Yes.
So that is really quite revolutionary for all of those people that are gluten intolerant.
But I also think that, the commercial sourdough isn't the real sourdough either. So I think there's this falsehood out there for, say, someone like myself who can't eat bread because of the same issues. And you buy sourdough thinking, it's better for the gut and for everything else inside, but you just still react exactly the same because it's a manufactured culture that they're using, and we're not having the proper culture in our bread.
Well, that's right. They can put vinegar in it and call it sourdough.
Yeah.
They do use a manufactured culture to put in it. And even commercial sourdough bread could be 2 hours from start to finish. That's not properly fermented.
No.
When you see the lovely sourdough artisan breads, maybe at a farmer's market, a good question to ask is, how long did you prove this? And you want it, realistically, at least 36 hours.
Yeah.
The bread that I make is a 3-day, 4-day. But it's so easy. It's so much simpler. But you talking about the gluten, it's not just the gluten. A huge amount of gut problems are from glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup and other pesticides.
Yeah.
It's I'll just briefly, but we could do a whole series on this. When Roundup applied for their first patent, it was awarded as an antibiotic, classified as an antibiotic. We don't realize antibiotics are being sprayed on our food. And then it destroys the shikimate pathway. Now, this is interesting. The shikimate pathway is the communication pathway between the cells of a plant. So Monsanto said, well, it's not harmful to humans because they don't have a shikimate pathway. Well, scientists have now discovered that our gut bacteria, you mentioned our gut health, our gut bacteria cells have a shikimate pathway. So that's why glyphosate is so damaging to our gut, because it destroys that communication. And our bodies are 9 times more bacteria cells than human cells. Hello, boys.
This
So when you
is
consider that your
Casper.
body is 9 times more bacteria cells than human cells, you sort of want to look after them. And we don't have to do a lot to look after them. We just have to not kill them off.
I was just thinking, Patricia, do you want to tell people what glyphosate is actually used for, even though it's in our food, but what it was actually manufactured for?
It was manufactured as a weed killer. Sort of came off the heels of Agent Orange that was used in the Vietnam War, but that's another talk for another day. But yes, it's used as a weed killer, very convenient, but it's been proven in many, many court trials to cause cancer, but it goes far, far deeper than that. So it's sprayed to kill the weeds, but then it's sprayed as a desiccant, especially on wheat, to dry it out and get it into production faster. So wheat gets 2 sprays at least. And it destroys the vitamins, the minerals, the amino acids in the crop. So now we're not only eating something that has no nutritional value, but it's tearing up our gut, causing cancer, all sorts of problems.
And I think this is where, you know, unless anybody actually tells you this, you wouldn't know any different. And as you quite rightly said in the beginning, in the introduction, that, you know, there are so many different diseases now and so many different illnesses that weren't around years ago. And, you know, we are really suffering with it. And I guess this is why we have to take care of our bodies. We have to look after our gut health, more importantly, because your gut is the second brain. And, you know, there was only a program on the UK TV last night, there was a documentary on it, looking at the microbiome in your gut and how it affects your immune system. So for me, it's so interesting, yet it's very complex as a layperson to physically understand, you know, all of the kind of complexities of this, especially living in a pandemic at the moment, whereby we have to look after our immune system.
Well, interesting you mentioned the pandemic, because one of the biochemists that I follow mapped out, gosh, middle of last year, I think it was sort of April, she mapped out the hot spots of the virus around the world. And coincidentally, or not, they were centering around major international airports where the airlines were using biofuel to be green and eco-friendly and all that. Well, they're not burning organic material, are they? So their spray, glyphosate was measured in the air all around the world. It's in our water, it's in our food, it's in the air we breathe. That is the greater pandemic. I mean, you can quote me on that.
That's really scary. That is really scary, very scary.
And
I mean, I hadn't heard of it.
To find out if it's in your drinking water is next to impossible. I tried here in England, did not get very far.
Well, they sell these.
But we're not talking about bread.
No, we need to get back to bread.
So just on that note, what is the best way to get a sourdough starter on its way and, you know, start to kind of learn how to become, because again, we're in lockdown here in the UK for another 4-6 weeks, who knows, until this actually starts to calm down with the, you know, with vaccination program in process. But equally, what the first lockdown did is it actually brought people back to basics, because obviously there's very little else. You can't go out, really. You should be at home, you know, making the most of being at home and staying safe. So what a lot of people did was they went back to basics. They went back to cooking good, wholesome meals. They went back to learning how to sew and to produce things like bread. And this is a great opportunity to actually learn how to do this, and it be, you know, come part of a daily routine or a weekly routine, really, to start being really healthy again. So how would you get that going again, Patricia?
Well, you want to start with organic, strong white bread flour. The white flour is better for getting a starter going. You want to use water that doesn't have chlorine in it. You can simply set a jug out overnight and let the chlorine just dissipate.
Right.
That'll do that. You don't want the chlorine in it because we're trying to grow germs, good germs.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it if there's chlorine in it. It's meant to kill the germs. So your flour and your water, you want equal amounts. I like to use a digital scale. It's so easy. You just plop a bowl on it and you just add your stuff. So you don't need a lot of mixing bowls and measuring cups. So I start with 50 grams of organic strong white bread flour and 50 grams of water. Mix it up, put in a glass bowl, because you just never know what's in plastics. Glass bowl, leave it on the countertop, leave it overnight. Certainly it's warmer perhaps on the other side of the world. Right now we're in winter.
Yeah.
40 degrees over here.
Is it?
40 again tomorrow.
10.
Wow.
Great bread making weather then.
Love it. But you leave it out. And but you know, after 24 hours, you should see some bubbles. Then add another 50 grams of flour, another 50 grams of water, and stir it up. So every time you're adding that flour in, you're feeding it. These are live bacteria. So you're feeding. Now you should have 100 grams. And so you leave it out another 24 hours. You should see more bubbles. If you don't panic. Leave it out another day. It's so cool here. It's a much slower process. Where it's warmer, it's going to happen faster. But once it's bubbling, now you cut it in half. You take half out. You take 50 grams of that starter out and add 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water and mix it up. And each time you feed it, it comes to life more and more and more. Okay. Now you do a test. You get a glass of water. You take a little spoonful out and plop it in that glass, and it should float. So when it's floating, now you mix it with your flour and your water and your salt to make your dough. And when you get your dough made up, and I do like a kilogram of flour, 700 grams of water, and 100 grams of starter. Put it in a bowl with a lid in the fridge. In the fridge, 3 days, and you'll watch the level go up and up and up, and you'll see air pockets develop inside.
Wow.
That's modifying that gluten and doing all the lovely things for you. This is not laborious.
Okay.
So then when that's finished, then you take it out. I make 3 loaves at a time, divide it into 3, shape it, put it in a lovely banneton, back in the fridge overnight to prove. And then you bake it, and you get this.
Oh gosh, that looks amazing. Yeah, it looks amazing.
Wow. Oh gosh, I want some of that.
And I put caraway seeds and fresh cracked black pepper in.
Wow.
Real good wintry. I put pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds on the outside. You can put all sorts of things.
So Patricia, once you've done all that and you've got your starter and you're going through that process, is it at the end point there where you would add, say your like your ancient seeds and grain, like you said, you had caraway seeds in there, and you could put anything else in there? Is that just before you go to bake that you put all that in?
It's when you divide it into 3 and you're shaping, you do a couple series of stretch and fold. And when you lay it out to do your stretch and fold, that's when you sprinkle the seeds. I put sun-dried tomato and feta cheese. We've done
Ooh,
chilies and cheddar
wow,
cheese.
Wow.
amazing.
Dried fruit, like fruit and nut. I did cocoa nibs and dried. I mean, just you're limited by your
The,
imagination.
Wow.
the list is endless. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are loads of different methods. Every baker I speak to has their own way to do it. But a good friend of mine, Michael, here in just down the road from me, actually, was celiac and desperate for pizza. Hadn't had bread for 25 years, and he's desperate for pizza. He's trying to find some way to make a decent pizza base. And he's a very inventive sort of person, and he just persevered until he very scientific as well, and worked out the modification of the gluten allowed him to eat it.
Wow, that's amazing. So I've really learned the fact that you can be gluten intolerant and eat sourdough, and it shouldn't or doesn't affect your gut. So that is just fantastic. Really
Well, it
amazing.
modifies the starch, so you don't get the sugar spikes. So diabetics can eat bread.
Wow.
Now you'll love this. You can eat all you want and not gain weight.
Wow. What? Who said that about bread ever?
Wow.
Ever.
Yes.
Ever.
Absolutely.
I'm not. And one reason is because of that stone grinding of the flour, that roughness of it, and having all the nutrients in there. You eat a piece of this bread, and your body is busy extracting those nutrients for a couple of hours. If you eat a piece of commercial bread, your body's done with it in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
They fed white commercial bread to lab rats, and they all died of malnutrition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
so I'm assuming too that the bread too is low in GI as well.
Mm-hmm.
So because there are people that probably track their food through, the GI index. So yeah.
Oh, I've got.
But I think equally, just touching on that point, Lee, again, you haven't got the nasty additives or preservatives that are put in conventional bread that you buy from the supermarkets. Because what are they designed to do? They're designed to be fresh smelling and last longer, and still be very spongy and light and fluffy. Yet now we're talking completely different level here, because we have no additives or preservatives, which is surely the best route to take.
Well, it's a natural. Anything that's fermented has a natural preservative. I do fermented veg. And they don't.
Sauerkraut.
That's how people used to preserve their food. So it's a natural preservative. With
amazing.
And then the bread also is a great prebiotic to feed the probiotics in your gut.
Can we just touch on that a moment, Patricia? Just about healthy bacteria for your good microbiome, and why it's so important to actually feed your gut healthy bacteria. Why is it so important?
Well, you touched on it earlier. We realized our gut is so important. When I grew up, and I'll be 70 in March, we didn't talk about down there, we didn't. But I don't think we realized, even though Hippocrates said 2,000 years ago, your health begins in your gut, and all sickness begins in your gut. I mean, that's it. And we have this communication between our gut and our brain. It's the vagus nerve, but it's a series of nerves.
Yeah.
More processes initiate from our gut and go to our brain than actually ever originate in our brain and go to our gut. We always thought our brain was our computer, our command center. No, it's our gut. 70% of our immune system is in our gut.
Yeah.
So we get that sorted out, and our body is functioning the way it was designed to function. We don't need to be running scared of this virus lurking in the air, just waiting to pounce on us. Our body is designed to deal with viruses.
Exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, they say it is your second brain, isn't it? And again, it's like when you eat a large meal, you're full. So that's the messages that are going to your brain that you know, you're full, you're hungry, that kind of thing. I didn't realize personally how complex the human intestinal system really is in terms of, you know, looking after it. I mean, how have I existed for nearly 52 years and not really realized, you know, just how important it is to look after your gut and how it impacts on your health, your wellness, and also, you know, weight management, everything, absolutely everything, your immune
that
system.
information doesn't come from our doctors because they don't know. They don't know. And I lost my health about 6 years ago, and after doctors' treatments and tests and prescriptions and all this and getting worse and worse and worse, then they finally said, well, there's nothing they could do. I was forced then to either go to a nursing home or sort myself out. So I've had an eye-opening education all along the way, and now enjoying the best health of my life. Best health of my life.
You certainly look fantastic on it, which is good for you, Patricia. So you'll have to let us know the secrets to your longevity in another interview. But I think we're kind of coming to a close now, and I think that you know, it's been absolutely incredibly interesting talking to you and learning all about making a sourdough starter and how it kind of, you know, really is good for you. I'd really love to take this to another interview, and I think you probably would as well, wouldn't you, Lee?
Oh, definitely, absolutely. Patricia, if anyone is watching this and curious about trying to make their own proper, legitimate sourdough bread, are they able to drop a comment in the questions below and possibly get a basic recipe off you?
Oh, of course, yes, be glad to.
Okay, all right. So
that
if
would be
anyone
amazing.
is interested and wants to, and me personally definitely want a recipe, so all you need to do is make a comment and ask, and we can get a recipe to you.
That would be amazing, because I, before lockdown was enforced here in the UK, I went to the supermarket the other day to get some organic bread flour, and I managed to buy a bag in Waitrose. So yeah, I've got a bag of organic flour. Now I am going to contact your miller who can get the flour from, he's down here in the West Country, so
yes, people can
sure,
also
kind of,
ask, he will ship. So if you're in the UK, just ask for that address and he'll ship, because you don't want to make your bread with just your organic strong white bread flour. You want to mix in the whole grain. Now, whole grain is tricky to find. Don't settle for whole. You want whole grain, because the white flour doesn't have any nutrients.
Okay.
But
that's good to know.
So when trying to search for the whole grain, what do we need to be looking for, Patricia? Especially, say, for myself here in Australia, what would I need to be looking for to get the organic whole grain here?
Well, just I would say probably Google it to see who suppliers might be, but it's organic, strong, whole grain bread flour. So you might not have strong, but if it says bread flour, that implies that the strong, the higher protein content.
Okay.
See who you might know around you, and that would be a good resource for people in Australia.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's been a really interesting interview today, and I'd really just like to thank you so much for your time today, joining us, Patricia. And if anybody has any comments, and again wants the recipe and wants the contact details of the flour supplier that Patricia uses, absolutely put that down in the comments, and then we'll get back to you at a later date. But we will be following this up with a series of interviews on sort of bread and gut health and all sorts of interesting topics with Patricia, and look forward to catching up again next week. So Patricia, just want to extend our thanks again for you joining us today. Lee, thanks for joining us all the way from Australia again in your 40-degree heat. And thank you, ladies. Fabulous interview, and look forward to talking to you all again very, very soon. Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.